Hi, AJ Hartley here, novelist, Shakespeare professor, baby metal fan, and we have a new song featuring, of all people, Tom Morello. This is Metali. There has been a lot of talk about this song already after some bootleg footage came out. And then we got to hear the song, and today we got the video. So there has been a lot of conversation about the instrumentation already, so I'm going to focus primarily on lyrical content, cultural associations, and the visuals of the video, which I think are really interesting, as a way of trying to sort of assess meaning. A lot of people are already talking about the effect of the song, because it's a banger. This is now official. It's a banger. So I'm going to focus on meaning. All right, let's go. There's too much going on. I have to stop it. Plus, if I don't stop it, I'm going to get blocked for copyright. So, it sounds so great, and it's heavy and driving and such, and things that everybody has already said. Initially, of course, what we see more than anything else is a very self-conscious flashback to the Megitsune video, which is maybe their sort of first truly iconic song in terms of announcing who they are, other than Gimme Chocolate. But it frames it in that they used a sort of a no theater presentation style for that video, and we're seeing something similar here. Very sort of traditional look on tatami. They're wearing their shoes on tatami. It pains me, though I think that's actually sort of interesting and important right from the start, because we're going to see this kind of imagery a lot. A simultaneous invocation of very traditional Japanese iconography and an undercutting of it, a sort of a modernizing and metalizing and a kind of inclusive breaking down of those traditional forms. So we see it, it's part of who they are and what they are, but it's also something that they, even as it defines them, they are also breaking it apart. And we're going to see that a lot in this video. And of course, we have the first sound we hear is the shamisen, played in the video by a figure of the fox god with the kitsune mask. So again, anchoring them in their own past, but as a band and as a culture, centering that as a sort of formal presentation in Japanese terms. We're getting a lot of crowd encouragement noises, the washoi, washoi, yoshoi, 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 washoi, washoi, yoshoi. These are, we've heard these before in Megitsune. We heard some similar things in songs like Karate, songs that are supposed to sort of fire up an audience, and you hear these a lot at festivals, particularly when people are carrying shrines around or performing in some kind of physical activity, including dancing. So that's part of the setup. Okay, so let's pause there. That's a good image of the room. So this is not a no theater exactly. It looks more like a house or a ryokan or something along those lines. And if you back up a little bit, you'll see that a few frames earlier there, we have stuff on the ground that looks like a sort of traditional tea serving or something similar, with those very low tables, one on either side of the stage. But in the course of the dance, that gets kicked over. Now, I say, the first thing I referred to was the Megitsune video, where something similar happens right at the beginning of that video, where we see them in kimonos and being unraveled, pulling the obi that releases them. enabling them to then move around the stage and dance in this in this quite sort of lateral, open sort of way, which is not traditionally Japanese. So I think something similar is happening here. We see the trappings of the traditional Japanese culture, which then have to be sort of kicked out of the way somewhat, right? We're still holding on to a lot of it, but in order to free us up, we have to break out from some of those sort of traditional forms. Let me get to the first part of the lyric. Metamura matsuri no meta ondo, matsuri de yotoide. So this is Meta Ondo, the festival, the theme song of the metal village, right? So we're creating a sense of a community. Matsuri de yotoide. So it's a festival, so everybody gather together. Waka ni natte. Piyaro odoro. So make a circle. Dance to the music. The piyara is an onomatic representation of the sound of the flute, which, along with the drum and the shamisen, is one of the main instruments associated with these kind of festivals. So again, welcoming people to the village, this imaginary metal village, but bringing them into the event. One of the other things that you see in those first images, if I can find it, is this figure that is wearing a hyotoko mask, which is a sort of traditional folk mask associated with dengaku and other forms of dance and popular entertainment. So the mask is associated with the folk dance and culture, particularly with matsuri, festivals, including the one which seems to be most centered in this song, the Awa Odori festival, which is an August festival in the Shikoku area, but I think other versions of it, we can see elsewhere. And this particular mask you see a lot in Japan. And as you can tell, it's a comic mask. It's a goofy, it's supposed to be, I think the idea is that he's blowing fire, but it's a sort of a comic, lowbrow kind of thing. It's not an elegant mask. It's a people's thing. It's an ordinary thing. Now, this is one of the core ideas of the video, of the song, this sense of inclusivity. Again, a very baby metal idea, the idea of bringing everybody into the dance, into the festival. Metamura Nikisan, Nekisan Mo. Nikisan and Nekisan is an abbreviation, or a sort of familiar version of, it's like saying everybody, brothers and sisters. It's male and female people. So everybody. Matsuri da yotoide. It's a festival, gather together. Waka ni natte. Mina de otao. So again, gather together in a circle. Everybody join in, sing. Minna, everybody. And you hear them say this in concert all the time, right? When they're trying to get everybody involved. Minna. So, and you see the way that that inclusivity, the bringing people in, requires the breaking down of some of those traditional elements, right? So we see the shoji at the back get punctured as the hands start coming through, and we get the kitsune fox signs as we're sort of metalizing traditional culture and bringing people in who might otherwise be kept out of the sort of the more elegant tea room kind of framework. Sore sore is another one of those encouraging noises. Dokoisho is hard to translate. It's sort of a meaningless word that we use for rhythm, but also like the sore sore, it's a phrase that is asking people to use physical power, their strength, to do something, mostly when you're moving stuff around or you're using your body. I should say thanks to Flugelhorn, Old Man, to Funny Toss, aka Stephen, and to Capable Paramedic for helping me out fielding questions about some of these lyrics. Some of the wording and phrasing is a little odd, and I wanted to get some input. So thanks to those guys for helping out. Ororu aho ni miru aho. Onaji aho naria ororinchai. It's, idiots if you're dancing, and idiots who are watching. So it's idiots who are dancing, idiots who are watching the dance. But since we're all idiots, you may as well join in the dance. And this is a sort of slogan for the Awa Adori festival, right? This is like the official phrase associated with it. It's like the mask. It reduces people, it strips away all their pretensions and their sophistications, and says, you're all crazy anyway, you're all stupid, so you may as well participate in this fun activity. But it's also, as I say, a question of bringing everybody in. It's not just for a certain number. It's not even for just performers. It's a performance that is designed to lead everybody else. And that is very baby metal, right? But that idea of taking the art form and expanding it to include the audience and getting them involved in it. Sore, 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 dokoi sho. Again. Ororan ainja utainchai. And then utawan ainja ororinchai. This sounds really stupid with me saying it. Kokore odoranya karenai. What it means is, if you don't want to dance, then sing instead. If you don't want to sing, then dance instead. You won't be able to leave unless you dance now, right? You've got to stay here. You can't leave this place. Kokore. You can't leave karenai. Until you've participated. So you've got to do one. You've got to do singing or dancing. But the phrasing is tricky. Ororinchai is a sort of intimate or closer version of ororinsai, which is a dialect form, right, associated with Hiroshima and surrounding areas that girls use, which is sort of cute. Odore, odore is dance. Yurase, yurase, sway, move. Utae, utae, sing loud. Sakebe, sakebe, scream and shout. As we segue into this sort of concert footage, so we move from the tea room to the concert hall, but the concert hall is also framed in traditional Japanese ways with the sort of the red barriers and the lanterns that make it look like a traditional bridge or something similar. But also we see the masks of the comic ordinary people masks in the crowd surrounding the stage. I was just going to say, one of the things that I think people have commented on already is that Sue's voice sounds different here than it did on the previous album. It seems less manipulated, less digitally mastered. That there's a rawness and clarity and purity, I think, that makes the whole thing feel visceral. It feels urgent and personal and less carefully polished, and there's no sign of the sort of auto-tune that we've heard on songs like Kingslayer and stuff like that, and she carries it off brilliantly. Washoi, 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 netemo sametemo dokoisho. Basically, whether you're asleep or you're awake, get up and move around, right? Again, it's one of those phrases that means no matter what your situation. So everybody. And then we get another one, washoi, 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 nekomo, nekomo shakushimo dokoisho, which literally means all the cats and ladles get on with it, get involved. And I was a bit baffled by this. And again, thanks to Flugelhorn Old Man for helping me out. This is a sort of weird, it does mean cats and ladles, but it means something like the English phrase, everything but a kitchen sink. In other words, everything and everybody should get involved, whether you are just a cat or a ladle in the, this is to involve everybody. It's a goofy phrase, but again, the core idea is inclusivity, getting everybody involved. Everybody should be here, right? Everybody should be joining in and dancing. And that's the core of the song. Whether you're a cat or a ladle, you should be dancing. is a wonderfully Japanese idea. Those images that you get in some old scrolls of inanimate objects through human interaction over a long period of time that become sort of spirits of some sort. And you see images of instruments and umbrellas and cooking utensils and stuff dancing in the street. So it doesn't literally mean that, but I like that association. All the cats and ladles, everybody get involved. One of the things that we see early in the video also is the image of the fan, which is a standard feature of the Awa Odori festival. A lot of the dancing associated with that particular festival involves movement of the wrist, the sort of flicking back and forth. It also involves a very low center of gravity, which we see in some of the dancers in the course of the in the course of the video, that people get very, very low. It must be very challenging on the hamstrings. Okay, so there's lots of stuff going on here. First, this is Momoko doing the voice. And as if you've seen any kabuki, I mean, it sounds a little like No also, but I think that the style particularly here is kabuki. And that sort of very constrained vocal effect when it's moving up and down, unnaturally musical phrasing is designed to set up a mie, a particular pose, a strike that we're actually going to see in the video. So what we're getting here is something which is hyper Japanese, you know, and traditional Japanese, sort of Edo period Japanese, through the sort of the folk dancing, but also through the kabuki and the style of the voice, and the self-presentation is sort of self-referentially historical, even amongst this all the sort of the metal and the urgency of and the volume and the celebratory quality of everything that's gone before. And I think there's a reason that it's this sort of little, very traditional island in the middle of the song, right? The lyric makes it clear as to why it's only an island.
Metali. Metali.
Yeah. So that the way, and that sort of the way that she sort of vibrates as she strikes the pose, that's very mie. That moment in which you hold something, you draw attention to the sort of suddenness of the stop, and you're holding a pose that magnifies the sense of character and moment in the play, in the performance, right? That's what kabuki does. It's super stylized, it's over the top, and it's celebrated for its larger-than-life manifestation of a particular feeling, like shock or passion or anger or something that character is feeling in the moment, and they strike this very unusual pose, and the voice sets that up, and she goes into it. But in the same moment, you see that what she's saying in this hyper stylized way is actually an invitation for everybody to get involved, right? Ororu aho ni miru aho. Onajia aho nara odoru de shikashi koku de ororanya itsu odoru. So this is like a version of what we have already done. Idiots who dance themselves and idiots who watch them dance. If we're all idiots, you have no choice but to dance. When are you going to dance if you don't dance now, right? And then metari. I am told that there's a sort of an Osaka dialect associated. I'm not by any means an expert on Japanese dialects, so this is all secondhand. But it should mean something like, if you don't dance now, it's a waste of your life, right? That's a particular dialect form of the shikashi, which otherwise doesn't have, in regular Japanese, doesn't have a specific meaning. Flugelhorn Old Man tells me that there's also a joke, a punchline associated with a comedy duo, Manzai, from Osaka. This is from between the 1960s and the 1980s. Yasushi and Kiyoshi, that they had a punchline that is similar. That translates to mean I'll get angry. Is this there? Is it possible? I don't know. I mean, certainly, Dwayne Metal used to talk about stuff like this, these sort of echoes of older Japanese pop culture. So I'm not qualified to say whether there's an echo of that here, but I know some older Japanese people are hearing it and think that Baby Metal have done this before, and it makes a kind of sense, right? That whatever else they're doing, even as they engage with really traditional, old, hundreds of years old forms of language and culture and dance, they're also then bringing it into the present via these other periods. So I think it's at least possible that there are these other references to making the past contemporary, right? To make it feel urgent and present at the same time as they're doing something rooted in the past, if that makes sense. Japanese people, feel free to argue about the precise dialect forms of these words, because I'm out of my depth. I mean, I'm a kabuki fan. I really enjoy it when I go and see it, but it is an elitist art form, of course, like a lot of theatre. It's in some ways quite disconnected from contemporary Japanese culture. Not least, of course, because there are no women on stage. So one of the things that we're seeing here in Momoko doing this is, even in the representation of something super traditional, they're doing it in a contemporary way, and the lyric in which they're choosing to do it is the lyric that is telling everybody to get involved. And then we segue not just into the concert footage, but into Tom Morello, who is, arguably the highest profile rock star with whom they have collaborated, at least in terms of Western music, obviously as a guitar icon, as a model of a particular kind of widespread rock music through Rage Against the Machine and his other projects, and as a mixed race performer, right? If we're talking about inclusivity and opening up these traditional Japanese forms to something which is more urgent and contemporary, that all of those factors are relevant, and to put him on the video as well, so that this is not just a sort of marginal part where he's turned in a little bit of music or something and that's it. But they're centering him within the song in the same way that they did with Sabaton and with F-Hero in Papaya, which has some analogies, I think, to this song also, right? Which is also a summer Matsuri festival song. But here we're getting, again, that sort of hyper-Japanese version, but again, expanding it to include other people, including general audience of all kinds, but also people from outside Japan in this celebration of something which is still Japanese, but also new and inclusive. Let's just acknowledge that she's going for 100%. You hear it in her voice, right? There's a sort of a lack of restraint that I don't know that I've ever heard before from her, which is awesome. And then we see Morello singing the Washoi Washoi stuff as well, right? And of course, this is a crowd anthem, and that's the purpose of the Washoi Washoi anyway, right? It's to cheer people along, to get them pumped up, to get them fired up to do what they're doing and to participate. So she's leading it, the crowd participate, he's participating, and we're all involved. And that is officially awesome. We keep the image of the Japanese stage. So we move from tea room, shrine space, whatever you want to think of it, into something which is much more populist, much more open, much more inclusive. And I think it's entirely in keeping with the lyric of the song. Awesome. I love the way, I love the tuning of the retuning of the guitar to get us that discordant note at the end. I love the thirds that he's playing. I guess it's sort of the harmonizing effect on the guitar that's giving us that sense of close harmony on the lead. I love the way that the video centers him at the end, but keeps them involved in the same, the sort of the mini, the little pixie metal image at the end. Great stuff, man. It's a simple song in many ways, but I think that the way that it's executed is, there's so much attention to detail, which of course is very baby metal, but it's also very self-conscious and smart. Great. So in summary, we've got a song which in its lyrics and its instrumentation and its performance and the video elements as well all evoke a strong element of Japanese culture, which is both historical and contemporary. It's low and high culture simultaneously. It's the sort of street festival that everybody's involved in, but it's also kabuki and various other things. But the high culture elements are ways of bringing in the low culture, the popular, right? So we're evoking both, but ultimately it's the popular and the inclusive that rides out. And so we've got this sort of celebratory rock show performance that is supposed to involve everybody, and it's a rousing, celebratory summer anthem. That's it. And it's made for everyone, regardless of culture or class or whether you're Japanese or not Japanese or what. I think that's the point. Because at heart, we're all idiots. So we may as well accept that and revel in it. That's the point. Ultimately, I think it's quite Buddhist. But yes, that sort of breaking down all our sophistications and our arrogances and getting to the heart of what we are as human beings, and let's celebrate that in a force of life, which is what the Summer Festival is. So yeah. So yes, A.J. Hartley, novelist, Shakespeare professor, idiot. But we already knew this. Anyway, okay, that's it. As ever, please like, comment, subscribe, check out my Patreon page. If the stuff about Japanese culture interests you, check out my new novel, particularly Hideki Smith Demon Queller, which is not technically out yet, but is available. And check out my other books. Thanks to my patrons, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.